If you had a magic sword, would you sell it? If you did sell it, what would you charge for it? What would you replace it with? Who would you sell it to? Hello, fellow world builder, and welcome to another episode of Just in Time Worlds. Today, I would like to talk about magic and the economy. I'm going to break today's topic down into paying your bills, trade in magic and magical items, magic as an economic multiplier, and finally I will give you 4 tips for making magic feel as though it is an intrinsic part of your economy. Let's talk about paying the bills. So, it's often sort of seen that being a wizard is its own profession. And yet, if wizardry is a profession, if being a mage is your actual skill and you spend hundreds of hours studying for it, how do you pay your bills with it? Do you advertise? Do you sell your magic to the highest bidders? Do you run discounts? I mean, if you have a magic system like DnD, which is based on a number of slots per day, do mages have a happy hour at the end of the day where all unused slots must go and they're selling them at, half price? Buy 1 slot, get 1 free. It's perhaps a little too satirical for your world, but it's a very interesting part of magic is how a mage actually makes money. An author who handles this really well is Jim Butcher in the Harry Dresden books. Now, if you've been following my channel, you know that I'm a huge Dresden fangirl, so it should come as no surprise that I would bring Harry up as an example here. In the books, Harry is a private detective and a wizard. And he has an ad in the yellow pages where he advertises his services as a wizard. It's amazing. I mean, the whole concept is amazing, that he has an ad in the yellow pages, that he struggles to pay his bills, that he has to be nice to his client. He's kind of dependent on word of mouth. And then people don't really want to hire a wizard because they think it might be crazy. So he has to do work on the side for the local police department, and he has to keep his the police sergeant there, Karen Murphy. He has to keep her happy with him so that she'll keep hiring him. And it's such a great setup, and it makes it feel so real because as a person, who has to pay the bills, it's so great to actually have this fantasy world where you can relate to the main character and his struggles with paying the bills, while at the same time being in this fantastical environment where the skill that he's selling is magic. It's really well done, and if you are looking to make magic a profession in your world, I highly advise taking a look at how Jim Butcher did it in the Dresden Files. But you don't have to have magic itself be the selling product. You could also sell magic as a resource or magic items as tradable items. Now, the thing here is that you have to be careful with your pricing. If magic is very scarce, and if magical items are very scarce, it shouldn't be an easily tradable thing. Like if you get 1 magic sword in all of your life, the way it is in most fantasy books, you probably wouldn't be selling that no matter how weird it is. And here I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I have been playing D&D for 20 years, and I love the game system. But in D&D, magical items are tradable items because the gaming system is balanced to include magic items in your challenge rating. which means that players have to be able to pick up magic items in dungeons, they have to be able to sell them, and they have to be able to buy level-appropriate magic gear in order to work with the combat system as it is out the box. But the generic D&D setting is a semi-feudal European setting. These two things don't work together. Okay? If you have magical trade in magic items that is so available and so common that players can walk into a medium-sized town and have access to a market to purchase magical items from, you would not have a feudal type setting, because there would be so much money flowing into your economy that you just would not be able to keep the peasants working at the farm for nothing but scraps of food. It will not work that way. People don't work that way. Even more, if your society was built on this feudalistic way and adventurers can go into a dungeon and beat up orcs and take their stuff and sell them at the nearest town and make literally hundreds of thousands of gold this way, why is everybody not going into being an adventurer? And don't tell me there are risks of them dying. There were risks of people dying when they flocked to the gold fields during the big gold rushes of the 18th century. And yet, thousands of people went to dire circumstances in Alaska, in Africa, all over the world, to go to these places to try and mine gold to find their fortunes. So don't tell me that the risks will stop them. It won't. So, I'm sorry about the rant. It is my pettest peeve about D&D is that magical marketplace. But if you have a magical marketplace, if you're trading in items, really think about what that means for your society. One, it means that your society has got a lot of trade. Okay? Which makes it probably closer to the Bronze Ages than to the Middle Ages. Because in the Bronze Ages, they had trade networks spanning the continent. You don't get tin in the Middle Eastern, where the superpowers of the Bronze Ages were, in the Middle Eastern area, right? That's not where you get tin. You get tin in Cornwall, in England. That is a long way to haul ore in order to make bronze. So really, really think about what impact that level of trade will have on your society. Also, think carefully about your pricing, because if you're saying that magic is completely out of sync in terms of its pricing with common items, so a chain shirt will cost you 100 gold, but a +1 chain shirt costs you 1,000 gold. Okay, so the mage is worth 1,000 gold. Oof. Why aren't mages just sitting there sweatshopping out chain shirts, man? I mean, that is a huge markup on an item, 1,000 gold. So you have to think about what would happen to your society if you had magic as a tradable resource and such a big trading network. Which segues us nicely into the impact that magic has on your economy and therefore your society as a multiplier. So I'm not here talking specifically about magic, say, multiplying resources, although I did make a tongue-in-cheek short about Rumpelstiltskin and his effect on inflation in a gold-based economy. I'm more talking about magic's impact on things like food security and healthcare. Let's say that your mages have got control over the weather. At this point, what are the changes that happen to your agriculture? Do you live in a post-need society because there is no risk in the harvest failing? There is no risk of drought. You know, if you eliminate those two risks, your society changes fundamentally in terms of how secure it is in its food supply. If you eliminate the risk of disease because magic provides health care, you fundamentally change your society. If you think back to currently we're in a pandemic. What if you had magic and you could just snap your fingers and COVID goes away? What if you had magic during the time period when Europe went through the Black Death? A quarter of Europe's population died from the Black Death. 1/4. That kind of thing has a devastating impact on your society. So what if you have magic that can prevent that? And how does that change your society? Do you live in a society that's a society of plenty? Or do the mages just look after themselves? Or do you have political organizations that offer magic as charity and thus get the mob on their side? And using that mob, they take the power. Like, all of these things are good questions to ask yourself when you're designing your magic system. Because remember, your magic system, your economy, your society, these three things are all going to impact each other. And you have to think of them in conjunction with one another when you're putting together your world. In summary, let's talk about those 4 things that you should ask yourself when you are designing your world in order to make magic feel as though it's part of your economy. 1. Who owns the magic resource and how does a mage make a living? So, from a modern day perspective, it would be very easy to say the mage owns the resource and they on-sell it. And that is a perfectly acceptable answer. But it's not the only one. If you show magical talent, you could be automatically taken into a religious order. And the church could on-sell your magic. They could be the ones making the money while you're a servant of the church. The government could claim your services and you become, in effect, a slave. Or you could perhaps work through brokerages. Maybe you sell your services to a brokerage who then on-sells that further to the rest of the world, kind of like a computer programmer working for a consultancy firm. So, are there organizations that a mage sells their services to and then those organizations on-sell the resources? Are there organizations who take control of the mage? Or does the mage own their own resources and they have to be the front of their own business selling their services to the people? And how do they make a living from this? Question 2. Is there a market for magical items? And how does it impact trade? Yeah, so I'm not going to issue my rant again. I'm just going to say be careful of magical items and think about how trade works. If you have items being transported from one city to another and the value of those items are 1 million gold pieces, you're going to get robbed. So, like, think about realistically, how does a market for magical items work? Question number 3. How does magic impact healthcare and death? So these are 2 things that have a dramatic impact on society. If healthcare is good and you take care of and your people live a long and healthy life, it changes your society by a lot. So think about what actually is the impact of magic on healthcare. If people can just get well with a spell, if you eliminate disease, I mean, those are big changes. And question number 4. How does magic impact food security? Do you live in an age of plenty? Do you live in an age where the elite force control all of the food? You know, how exactly does this work? And if you can answer all 4 of those questions, then you probably have a great world where magic feels as though it's integrated into your economy. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please do hit the thumbs up button, and I will see you on Tuesday for another episode of Just in Time World.